أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل فينا ولا منا ولا معنا شقيا ولا محروما يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك نستغيث أصلح لنا شأننا كله ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا ولا إلى غيرك طرفة عين ولا أقل من ذلك اللهم يا من علمت آدم علمنا ويا من فهمت سليمان فهمنا ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan. I begin in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. I praise Allah, and all praise belong to Him, Lord of the worlds, and we ask Him to shower abundantly His peace, praise, compassion, mercy, blessings, and greetings upon all the prophets and messengers of God, especially concluding with the final prophet and messenger of God, Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him, his family, companions, followers, and upon all of us gathered here in His blessed house this blessed evening. Dear brothers and sisters, we are incredibly honored to host this evening folks, the fine folks from Network for Hope and Life Center, and they are no strangers to our community and center. MashaAllah, I believe this may be the third or fourth program we have together, and may we have many more to come, and may God enlighten many people's understanding and guide us all to what is best and most pleasing to Him. That being said, thank you all for being here, and I would like to take a moment to introduce to you the program and our esteemed panelists. Our program this evening will be about organ and tissue donation. We will shed light on the process, the importance, and also the Islamic perspective on that. And then after we hear from our fine panelists, we are going to open the floor for your questions so we can make this tailored to your needs and curiosity. From here, inshallah, we hope that we would have built a sound understanding based on knowledge and facts. That way, when we make decisions or have discussions with our broader community, we're able to actually speak from a place of correct understanding, and hopefully we can bring folks more to these gatherings in the future so we can be among those whom Allah Almighty said about them, وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا, and one who supports the preservation of a single life, it is as if they have preserved the life of all of humanity. So that being said, from my right all the way at the end to left, I am honored to introduce Audrey Holtzman, and Audrey is not only the Inclusion and Belonging Program Manager as well as the Belonging and Outreach Manager. She is a dear friend, and she was the main person who connected me with the rest of these fine folks and this wonderful organization. So I am indebted to her for initiating the contact and for us to have an ongoing partnership. And next to me and between Audrey and I is none other than the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Network for Hope, and this is our dear and honorable, esteemed guest and brother. We say that a lot in our community. So Barry Musa. And to my left is Robert Winter, and he is the Vice President of Tissue Services for Network for Hope. And she's on her way. Her name is Andy Johnson, and she's the Vice President of Marketing and Community Engagement for the Network for Hope as well. She will be joining us as she is arriving in a few minutes, inshallah. So that being said, without any further ado, Audrey, Sorry.
Sure, no.
I apologize.
That's all good. I'm Barry Massa. I'm the CEO for Network for Hope. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to be here and being part of this panel discussion. As the Imam said, we've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, and this is one of my favorite events to do. So thank you for blessing us with you being here and for allowing us to be here, because it really is something that I look forward to every year. Network for Hope is the organ procurement organization that serves the greater Cincinnati area, but we also serve the whole Commonwealth of Kentucky, parts of Indiana, and Huntington, West Virginia. Network for Hope started because there was the organ procurement organization in Cincinnati was called Life Center Organ Donor Network, which most of you are probably familiar with, and which all of us, Robert, Audrey, myself, Andy, all worked. And then we merged with a organization like us in Kentucky in October of 24. With that merger, I became the CEO of the bigger organization. But what we do on a day-to-day basis is a few things. First of all, we're the organization that should a loved one be put in that situation where they could be eligible for organ donation, we are the ones who speak to the families, but also if that family says yes to being a donor, then we are the ones who facilitate the process to get the organs from the donor to the recipients, wherever they may be. We also do that with tissue donation, which is what Robert is in charge of, as well as cornea donation. We also, what we do is and part of what Audrey does and part of what Andy does, is go out to our community, just like we're doing today, and speaking about donation and the importance of registering, or at least having that conversation with your loved ones to let them know what you would like to do. Because we see it all the time that when an unexpected death happens and their family is not sure what their loved one would want to do as it relates to organ tissue and or eye donation, that is a very tough position for them to be in. So we always advocate for whatever decision it is, be informed, have people like us, talk to people like us, we'll answer your questions. But whatever decision you come to, make your family aware so that they know what you would want to do. But that's what we do, and we do that for, like I said, the greater Cincinnati area, the whole Commonwealth of Kentucky, and parts of West Virginia and parts of Indiana. So we are the 16th largest of the organ procurement organizations in the United States out of 55. And the most important thing that we do each day, and that we're honored to do each day, is to work with those donor families who made that generous, compassionate gift during their worst day of their life, when they have a loved one who's going to pass away, that they think about somebody else in their time of grief to give somebody else a second chance of life. And there's 108,000 people waiting right now, men, women, and children, about 400 of which are in the greater Cincinnati area waiting for that second chance of life. And there's obviously more people on the waiting list than are organs available for them. So anything that we could do, such as this, that raises awareness about the possibility of donation and the need for donation to hopefully save more lives, that's what we're here to do. And that's our single job. And Network for Hope, as well as all 55 organizations in the United States, are all nonprofit organizations. We are federally designated by Medicare. We are overseen by Medicare. We are a very heavily regulated industry, which we should be, because we are taking organ tissues and eyes from one person and putting them into another. So we should be heavily regulated, and we are. So there's a lot that goes into what we do that's behind the scenes. But like I said, the thing that we do and the most important thing that we do is try to give people that second chance at life. And with your help and spreading the news or spreading the positive impact of donation, we'll save more lives. So again, thank you for allowing us to be here. Thank you, Imam, for always having this panel discussion. I'm going to turn it over to Audrey, who will talk about some of the community impact that we do.
Thank you, Barry, and good evening. It is truly my pleasure to be here tonight. Like Barry said, this is one of probably my favorite event that we do every year, is to come here to the mosque and talk about organ, eye, and tissue donation. So my role in the organization is twofold. So internally, working with our teams to make sure that everybody that walks through the doors of Network for Hope feels like they're included and they belong. And then externally, I work with our communities to educate on organ, eye, and tissue donation. And to me, education is the key, and that's for everything. I know you hear people say that all the time, but it is truly what that is. And so the more you know, the better you can do, right? And so I'm out in the community educating people about what it means when you go to get your driver's license or to get state ID, and you're asked that question if you want to register as an organ, eye, or tissue donor. And I know it's a very quick interaction at the BMV, and so there's not time to ask questions. And so that's why it's important that we're out in the community educating and even taking questions from people in the community regarding donation, because it is such a taboo subject that we don't talk about death, we don't talk about dying. But in reality, it's going to happen. And so the more conversations that we have about our wishes, the better that we're talking to our family about this. And so, I'm very passionate about being out in the community, talking to people about what it means when you say yes. Because one person has the opportunity to save the lives of 8 people through organ donation and enhance the lives of over 100 people through tissue donation. And so a lot of people don't know that you can have that impact. And also there are, like Barry said, there are over 100,000 people that are waiting to receive the gift of an organ donation. But in reality, we don't have that many people who are registered that has said yes to the gift of donation. And so about 18 people die every day waiting. And so we are out there diligently trying to close that gap so that nobody's loved one has to die because they're waiting for an organ transplant. And so that's why this work is so important, and that's why I love coming here every year and having the opportunity to talk to you all about what it means to say yes to donation. And I'll turn it over to Robert, and he's going to talk a little bit about the whole process after you say yes, and what does that mean?
Thank you. Once again, my name is Robert Winter. I have the privilege of speaking to you tonight, and we truly are humbled that you include us, and the Imam invites us every year. So I'm responsible for a few departments at Network for Hope. One of being our kind of individuals who have the responsibility of approaching families for donation, and that mechanism is usually over the phone. they approach over the phone for tissue and corneal donation. And just to kind of give you a perspective, last year Network for Hope had the privilege and the honor to move forward with over 1,400 families that said yes, and were able to enable for tissue donation. And if you just take a moment to think about the impact that potentially has, if through one tissue donation that can help 100 people, you know, it is just truly an honor to be associated with an organization that potentially would have that impact to really help people have a normalcy of life, to be able to walk, to be able to hold their children, to be able to enjoy a freedom of life that they wouldn't have had without the generosity of somebody saying yes. The other aspect of donation in which Network for Hope is responsible for is approaching families for corneal donation. And we had, once again, the privilege that close to 2,000 families, you know, said yes through the generosity of wanting to save the sight of another individual. And, you know, just the impact of whether that seems like a simple gesture, but, you know, the impact that has on somebody to be able to, you know, truly enjoy the beauty of life and the beauty of their loved ones is very empowering. So we're privileged to be able to do that on a daily basis. The other aspect is my team is responsible for, you know, recovering those tissue gifts that families give us authorization to do. We do that and try to do that in a very respectful manner and treat every donor as if they were part of our family, and also coordinate and collaborate with our funeral home professional partners to ensure that their, you know, loved one is received by them, or whatever their kind of next period of you know, the process of dying. We don't take lightly our responsibility to do this, and we also don't take lightly our responsibility to communicate and to educate. And we're very thankful of this opportunity, and we look forward to, you know, hopefully if there are questions or inquiries, that we're able to help you understand really what donation means, because we truly believe as a nonprofit organization that those who understand donation will be supportive of the opportunity to really improve the lives of somebody that maybe they know, or equally impactful of somebody that they never know or might not meet. So the generosity of that is, we feel is something that, once again, the education, if you make that decision and communicate that decision, is so empowering. So, thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you, Barry and Audrey. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Dear brothers and sisters, let me shed some light from an Islamic perspective on organ donation and tissue donation. Before I continue, I'd like to clearly state that this is a matter of difference of opinion in Islam between the scholars. So this is a matter of difference of opinion between the Muslim scholars. What does that mean? Valid differences of opinion. Valid, this is very important, valid differences of opinion. So this is a matter that is a valid difference of opinion. Someone comes and tells you that, you know, there's a prophet after Prophet Muhammad, that's not a valid difference of opinion. Do you understand? But if someone says, this matter, for instance, that is a valid difference of opinion. What does that mean? We have an Islamic ruling that says, لا إنكار أو لا تبديع في ما اختلف فيه, that you cannot dismiss the different opinion within the valid differences of opinion. Are we establishing the structure here so we understand? When there are valid differences of opinion, one is obviously different from the other opinion. They differ. Within the boundary of valid, regardless of which opinion you choose to follow, we can never dismiss the other opinion. We can say, I prescribe to this opinion, I prefer this opinion, but you should not say that opinion is incorrect. Do you follow me? Welcome, Andy. Thank you. Our fifth panelist. We're honored to have you. Therefore, this is a matter of difference of opinion, and we need to establish the understanding that we cannot dismiss the other opinion when it's still valid, although you may prefer one over the other. One opinion, now I'm going to have a little bit of kind of imaginary debate between the scholars and share that with you so you understand. And again, I am abbreviating, I'm shortening, I'm simplifying as much as possible for the sake of time, and we're open for questions after this, which we really would like to do to make sure that we answer your questions. So, one group who says that organ donations are or should not be done in Islam. That's one group of scholars. And they base their argument upon that this body does not belong to you, it belongs to Allah, to God, Allah Almighty Subhanahu. And therefore, you cannot do with it or give of it to someone else because it doesn't belong to you. You're entrusted with it, but it does not belong to you, and therefore you can't give any part of it to anyone else. That's the argument of one group of scholars who say that this is that they're of the opinion that you should not donate organs. The other group of scholars debate them and say that they are for organ and tissue donations with some conditions, and I will go over those momentarily. But their argument is to respond, or their response to that argument is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, وَآتُوهُم مِّن مَّالِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي آتَاكُمْ وآتوهم من مال الله الذي آتاكم, and give them from Allah's wealth which He has provided you with. And give them from the wealth of Allah, Allah's wealth which He has provided you with. So in the Quran, Allah refers to the wealth that it is His. Yet He provided you with it, and yet He also is commanding you to give from what is His and you are provided with or entrusted with. So that's their first argument. The second is, they say that the breast milk from a mother is taken from her and given to another human being, the baby, or whomever she wet nurses. And therefore, not only is that permissible, that is highly encouraged in Islam. So you can take, in this case, obviously, the breast milk, and it goes to another human being, the baby. And the third argument or proof they use is they say that scholars around the world unanimously, Muslim scholars that is, agree that you can donate blood to a recipient that is in need. None of them forbid that. And blood is considered an organ, if I'm not mistaken. you're giving from part of your body, blood, and you're putting it in somebody else's body, and you're donating it. So they used these as proofs to argue for. Although, I'm going to remind us again that there's no dismissal of the opposite or opposing opinion. You may prefer one over the other, that's your choice. But we can never dismiss valid opinions, even if they differ. Now, what do I say as the Imam of ICGC? I usually refer to matters of such importance to not single opinionated or single opinion scholars or a single opinion of a particular scholar. I refer to a body of scholars, and this is what we call majami' fiqhiyya, the opinion and guidance of organizations that have extremely qualified, highly qualified scholars who provide us with fiqh jurisprudence guidance based on Islam and how to apply a particular matter in accordance to the guidance of Islam. Now, the majami' fiqhiyya, for instance, like AMJA, American Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, AM as in Mary, JA, online.org. I would highly recommend you use this. Is probably one of the most primary resources we have, a very authentic one, and it has a wealth of information. I encourage you to go to that website, amjaonline.org, and you can read anything in Arabic, or you can click on the button and it switches everything into English, and you can read the declarations. And this is just an amazing organization that has over 800 scholars that meet annually and discuss deeply a particular topic in its various branches. And we've had over 20 years of annual meetings every year here in the United States, and therefore it is very relevant to our conditions, and they're very knowledgeable to in Islam and in the contemporary matters that Muslim Americans face. So this is perhaps the most qualified organization, in my opinion, of a scholarly body that actually would give guidance on such matters. So in these matters, I don't like to take just one opinion of a scholar. I like to take a majma' fiqhi opinion, a scholarly or an assembly of scholars. And therefore, the majami' fiqhiyya, generally speaking, are for the organ and tissue donation with conditions. And I follow that opinion. What are the conditions and what are the guidelines? So there are two types of donors: a living donor and a deceased donor. A living donor, for instance, they can give like a kidney, for instance, as an example, right? Donate, and they still survive. They're living. Or someone gives a sliver or a portion of their liver, and yet they still continue to live. There are conditions for the living donor, and I will go over them. Number one is that you will survive fairly well, in good condition, after you donate a particular organ in your body. So that's the first condition, meaning that you cannot end your life to donate that particular organ. So you can't say, I'm going to donate my heart, and you end up dying. That's not permissible. What you donate needs to be something that you will continue to survive fairly well afterwards. And who is to say if you're going to survive fairly well, or at least the likelihood of which? It's your healthcare professionals. Your healthcare professionals. Islam here guides us to go seek the opinion and guidance of those who specialize. Allah says in the Holy Quran, in the middle of it, the honeybee, chapter honeybee, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask those of knowledge and specialty if you don't know. So in this case, if your healthcare professionals evaluate your body and your condition, and they suggest to you that yes, you can, there's a likelihood that if you donate, let's say, this kidney of yours, then you will survive fairly well and so forth, then you have that choice to make. But if they say your health condition is this or that and there's no way you should give it, then you should listen to your healthcare professional, because not everybody is the same. Everybody has their own situation. So you should not be donating an organ that would end your life. Whatever you donate needs to be that you can survive fairly well afterwards. You also, another condition is that you cannot donate reproductive organs. You cannot donate reproductive organs. And also, you can never sell your organs. You can donate, but you don't sit there and say, oh, I'll give this to you for this much, or for that in return. No. A donation with no expectation of any type of financial benefit or otherwise. So these are some of the conditions for a living donor. Whether the recipient is Muslim or non-Muslim is irrelevant. A deceased donor in Islam can donate any of their organs and body tissue except the reproductive organs. Except the reproductive organs. Other than that, they can donate whatever they choose to donate, and the same conditions of basically not selling their organs. But donating is definitely permissible, according to this opinion. And not only do they say it's permissible, but they actually quote the verse of the Holy Quran, which I recited early on. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا, where Allah Almighty says, and one who supports or preserves one single life, as if they have preserved the lives of all of humanity. All of humanity, all the human beings. And that's a tremendous reward. If you just think about it, someone is about to perish, car was about to hit him, something was going to happen, and you saved them. No, as if you've saved all of humanity. So these are some, and again, I'm simplifying, these are some of the arguments for and against. So I hope we are educating ourselves, and you can, educate yourself furthermore by going to some of the resources that we mentioned, and inshallah, we can carry on this conversation furthermore, inshallah. There was one more thing that I had on my mind to cover, but inshallah, when it comes, I will go ahead and yes, I remember it now. Thank you. When when is a person declared dead in Islam? When is a person declared dead in Islam? One of two ways, simply, if their brainstem is dead, then Islamically, they can be declared dead. And second is if their heart stops and they don't want it to be resuscitated, then they are declared dead. These are the two ways so far, according to Muslim scholars, that say this is how a person is declared dead, when one of these two happen. That's briefly what I wanted to talk about, inshallah. Now I would like to open the floor for your questions, and our esteemed panelists, along with myself, who will be, inshallah, here to answer each and every one of your questions to the best of our abilities. So I have one here and one there. I can't tell who raised their hand first, so I'll go with you because you're close, and I'll go with you second. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for inquiring. So, as far as age-wise, for organ donation, we really don't have an upper age limit. We assess if a patient is medically suitable and healthy, if that patient's able to donate. So we actually had some colleagues in Nebraska that run the organ procurement organization there that recently had a donor that was 100 years old. So I think it really just comes down to the health of the individual. And, we work with our hospital partners that when we receive a referral or they call us about a potential referral, that we as medical professionals work with the hospital to assess whether that patient can donate or not. So it's kind of a case by case, but we don't like to give or express that there's upper, because we don't want people to be discouraged to say that I'm too old or I'm too sick or I have this, because it sometimes does vary. And I think also because of the advancement a lot with transplantation, that has changed through the years. As far as your question is, as far as timing, so with organ donation, obviously that all is coordinated depending on the mannerism. If a patient is pronounced brain dead, then we would coordinate with the hospital and the family to do that recovery fairly succinctly. That usually occurs within, I would say, 24 to 48 hours. There's a lot that goes into it as far as our responsibility to coordinate and match up and work with the other nonprofit group that is responsible for matching up organs. So that sometimes takes some time. And then as far as tissue donation, once a patient, is either pronounced brain dead or cardiac dead, then we have up to 24 hours to kind of start that recovery. We try to be respectful to families when we approach them, but also knowing that we have a short time to do that. So then we would then initiate, and the recoveries would commence after we had spoken with the family. We do have a fair amount of to ensure that they understand what gifts they're eligible for. And then we also have a kind of questionnaire that we have to go through about their loved one, very similar to the questions when you donate blood, as far as just travel history, medical history, social, behavioral. But then we then would coordinate to have somebody's loved one to that, obviously, funeral home professional shortly after that. And we try to communicate that so that we know. And obviously with certain face, that is a shorter amount of time sometimes, and we try to be very respectful of that. If that helps. Sure, absolutely.
To your first question about age, and like Robert said, there's all kinds of situations where people were over the age of 90 that were able to donate. But again, they were a very, very healthy 90-year-old. And sometimes you could have a very unhealthy 30-year-old. So it really just does depend on the health of the donor. But to your point about timing, we get requests all the time from families, whether it's because of religious purposes or just because the family is tired and only wants the process to last X amount of hours. We will accommodate that so that we can try to transplant as many organs as possible, but at the same time be respectful for that family to make sure that they are meeting any time frame that they have. Again, whether religious or just because whatever time frame they want us to be done with, we will try to accommodate that to the best of our ability.
Ahmed, thank you. Thank you, Brother Abu Bakr. So the sister and doctor all the way in the corner.
Is Islamically okay to keep the body alive in the hospital and delay the funeral to get those organs or not? And the other thing is, in Europe they use corneas, which is not from people. Why don't they do it here? And what is some of the tissues you talking about?
Thank you for your questions. Let me clarify, from an Islamic perspective, we are encouraged to bury the body as feasibly early as possible. Contrary to many people that put an hour on it, they say 24 hours, within 24, I keep hearing that, and that has no Islamic basis. There is no Islamic basis for saying within 24 hours. As a matter of fact, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, after his death, he was not buried for another 2 to 3 days after his death. Peace and blessings be upon him. And that was obviously for the reasons when you study his biography, waiting for this person to come or that person to do and so forth. And then they basically buried the Prophet ﷺ after so many people came and gave it their farewell greetings. So the idea of within 24 hours has no particular Islamic basis, say 24. Why not 23? Why not 25? So there's no particular basis for that to my understanding. It should be as feasibly early as possible. What does feasibly mean? It differs from one person to another. If one person dies, his mother is in a different continent, and she wants to attend her only child's funeral, and it's going to take her 1 or 2 days to get here, we delay that funeral until she gets here. But if you passed away and we can bury you tomorrow, and there's no reason for the delay, and all your family members and loved ones are here, then we move on and go ahead and bury you. Do you follow me? But if you need to delay it for a day or more than a day within reason, then we should understand that Islamically speaking, there's flexibility there. Of course, the body needs to be cared for, meaning placed in a cool, refrigerated area, and it could, inshallah, be fine for the day or two, more or less, that is needed for that funeral to take place. I'm answering one part of the question that was here, and then inshallah we'll get to yours. So can we leave the body on the machine to gather the organs that are donated? The answer is yes, within reason. From an Islamic perspective, how long you want to keep that person on I'm not sure if that's even the process, so I'll leave that to Robert and my esteemed panelists. But assuming what you're saying is true or accurate, that people are placed on an artificial breathing machine for X amount of time in order for organs to be taken and transferred, then that time is okay from an Islamic perspective. But I don't know if that is the correct information or not. I'll leave that to Robert and my esteemed panelists.
So I think the process is that when Network for Hope gets involved, the patient is already on a ventilator, and that's the mechanism that the hospital has, in their clinical course to keep that patient in, a breathing state. When we get involved, that patient still is on a mechanical ventilator, and then if the patient is then pronounced brain dead, then that patient would stay on that mechanical kind of breathing device till we were able to recover the organs for transplantation in an operating room setting. Cornea. So your other question was concerning corneal donation. Sure, that it really depends on a lot of different circumstances. And once again, if I think to Barry's point, we try to work with families to meet their needs, but also it does take us, time as far as when a patient is pronounced brain dead, and then we work with the family to coordinate and have their understanding of what gifts that we can recover. I would say on a short amount of time, we are able to do that sometimes within 6 to 8 hours, but that also limits the ability for us to recover all the organ gifts that we possibly could recover. The longer time sometimes we have is to then coordinate that if we're able to recover kidneys and liver and the heart and the lungs, that takes time to coordinate who the recipients are and where they're located. So it really, I don't know, there's really not a succinct answer. It really depends, but I think the point is that we work with our donor families on each case individually to try to meet their needs, but also to meet the needs of those who are going to receive. And, we try to find the balance for that is for a family that's donating.
Is there a range, particular range, on average?
Yeah, I would say from an organ donation, it probably averages 24 to 48 hours.
Which would be Islamically okay.
Yes. So I think that to your other question as far as corneal donation and why in the United States we would predominantly use those gifts from another another individual versus using I don't really even know of any examples where they would use either either a porcine or a pig or a cow. I know that is sometimes used for heart valve, but the benefits of using a transplantation of a gift from one human to another, there's a lot of medical benefits to doing that versus a gift from a different species. A pig or a human is considered a xenograft, and sometimes there can be a greater amount of immunosuppression or rejection because that's not from the same species. So you're saying, okay, I'm sorry if I misunderstood. So you're saying for I don't know what term to use, but basically either a manufactured corneal, artificial, yeah. And I think that I'm sure there's been advancements to that, but even with mechanical, there's examples of using either a mechanical heart valve versus a human heart valve, and there are medical disadvantages for doing that. For sometimes you have to take, you have to be on medication as far as either immunosuppression or that that is going to be implanted, and sometimes your body sees that and then will kind of reject or attack that. And in So I guess I'm sorry if I'm not real knowledgeable on this, but I would say that, it's one thing to have like either a lens implant or a cataract surgery versus a corneal transplant. So I'm sorry if I'm not really knowledgeable on that. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So as far as tissue donation, the gifts that we're able to recover is that we recover skin that can be used, which is a kind of a thin, consists of the epidermal and the dermal layer. It's about the thickness of a 2-ply tissue that we recover from the main parts of the donor's body that's not visible or viewable. There, burn care can be used for diabetic wound ulcers, can be used for TENS patients that have reactions to medication. And actually in burn care, that is a life-saving gift. We've been very fortunate in our community to have the Shriners Burns Institute, which used to be located in Cincinnati, is now located in Dayton, that they provide world-class care. And we've always had a partnership with them that, we work with organizations that, are able to supply the gifts that we recover from donors to them to treat their patients. As far as other tissue gifts, we recover kind of bone or musculoskeletal tissue, and also tendons. A lot of that can be used in either neurological surgery, spinal surgery, orthopedic surgery, cancer surgeries, dental implants, dental surgeries. The other aspect is when we do recover the kind of heart with the intent to use the valves, the mitral valve, the pulmonary valve, and the aortic valve, and then those are implanted after they've been through a kind of processing that in one of other organizations that we partner with, and those once again can be considered kind of life-saving grafts for patients. Does that help? Thank you.
Thank you. This is very helpful. I want to say something first. To keep somebody alive. Recently, I went home. My mom was buried like 2 hours before I arrived. So the value of keeping somebody alive is really important and all that. But what I'm going to say now is a little that
No, I think you're exactly right in what you said as far as it's not black and white, there's a lot of gray. That is exactly it, because no two donors are alike. There's never going to be a situation where we could say this always occurs, because there's no two donors that are alike. And it is more art than science. There's a lot of science behind it. But to your point, families grieve in a different way. Families want things done in a different way or different time frames. And we try to accommodate them wherever they are in their grief journey. But what Network for Hope does and what our partners do, that are transplant centers, is we follow the American Neurological Association definitions of brain death, which is kind of the standard within the United States. I don't know how they marry that to the Muslim faith, but I know that's what we typically follow. But once again, like I said, there's really no, this is always going to occur because no two donors are alike, and we try to meet people where they are, wherever that may be.
I think the other point, obviously we rely on our hospital professionals and medical professionals to make that determination. I think the only thing that really has, from a medical diagnostic standpoint, is that we do now have the capability to do what's called a nuclear flow study, which can help aid in determination if there truly is brainstem activity. So I think that it is, we're very aware that there are different opinions on, brain death, but we also rely on our hospital partners, their neurologists to follow the guidelines and the parameters. And each one of our hospitals does have policies and parameters around brain death, and we partner with them to ensure that that is done and followed on each case.
Brother Abu Bakr.
I mean, it's a common practice in the hospital.
Brother Abu Bakr.
They have to pronounce the death at the spinal cord.
The sister all the way in the corner, not the one that answers. That's the person, the one next to her.
Even from 1960, they have all these discussions. But again, I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. I'm just telling you what's out there.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I got 3 questions. One is somebody asked if a cancer survivor can donate organs. And the second question is if like a teenager passes away and they have like in their will they have said that they'll donate their organs, and if the parents don't want, what's the thing for that? And the third question is after resurrection, this is for Imam Musa, after resurrection they say you will wake up, and so how does that work, like if you do not have your organs and stuff?
I'll address the first question, and Andy will address the second question. So the first question, as far as cancer, with organ donation, it really depends on the type of cancer, how long the remission's been in. It really is on a case-by-case basis. For tissue donation, a patient has to be cancer-free for at least 3 years from their time of death. And with corneal donation, actually a patient can have active cancer and still be a corneal donor. So hopefully that answers that.
And then to address your second question about if it's someone who's under the age of 18. So if that individual went ahead and received or obtained their driver's license or state ID, that's when they're first asked that question if they want to be an organ donor. If they say yes, and they do pass away and they're under the age of 18, their parents do have the option to revoke that decision. Does that answer your question? Okay.
The next part of their question about what happens when God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, resurrects you. Did I paraphrase it correctly? So, we are made of flesh and soul, body and spirit. The bodies will perish, will expire, and the soul remains. And when Allah Almighty recreates us again for the day of judgment, He will recreate us from very small, if I may, remains that may even be microscopic, if I may use that term. And God created us from nothing to begin with, and only God can do that. He brings us from non-existence to existence, soul and body. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will recreate the bodies again in a way that He knows and we don't have too many details about. It will be khalqan jadida, a new creation. Human beings, identifiable, the same person, but we may not have the same digestive system, because we know that people of paradise will eat and enjoy and have partners, as in wife and husband and so forth, but they never use the bathroom. We were informed that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, told us that they will not use the bathroom. Beautifully scented perfumes will come out of their body, if I may, and almost like sweat or like perfume. So the person is the person. They're identifiable. They're not mistaken for someone else. They're also not another species or creature. They're a human being. But the creation of that human being is going to be made by Allah Almighty, the one who fashioned us in the first place. And He doesn't need all of your organs to be intact in order to recreate you. For instance, someone that is in a, God forbid, a terrible accident, terrible plane crash, or a terrible nuclear, God forbid, disaster, or something that disintegrates their body. God will recreate them back, absolutely. And it's just, there's no such thing called difficult for God Almighty. As a matter of fact, He says, when I recreate you, it's easy, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're thinking from the human lens. I have to have A to go to B, to go to C. God doesn't need that. He says, be in your brought. As a matter of fact, we have an interesting story in that a man who lived a sinful life asked to be burnt, and then his ashes be spread in some running river, so God Almighty can't hold him accountable. But God Almighty recreates him and brings all of his ashes back, and he's brought to account. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to think that He can and will resurrect us and recreate us back, even if we have missing organs or we are completely disintegrated. Allah will bring us back. Okay? Because it's His power, not our thinking and abilities. Next question. In 5 minutes. 24. I misspoke.
Thanks for giving me an opportunity. I just wanted to question that. I'm not fully aware about the policy or the process, but my question is, do you pick up and choose who should and who should not be given the organs?
You mean who should donate or who should receive?
That on the recipient point. On the recipient point. That's the question.
Thank you for that question. How organs are allocated, it goes to the sickest person on the wait list. So all organs are allocated first within a 250-mile radius of where the donor originated. So in greater Cincinnati, we would go 250 miles out, and anybody on the wait list that has the same blood type and matches the donor would be the people who get first availability to that organ. So 250 miles would cover Chicago, down to Nashville, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh. So if you think about that circle, anybody on the wait list, the sickest person on the, if it's a kidney, the sickest person on that kidney, on the kidney wait list that matches that donor would be the first one offered that opportunity for the organ. We do not make that determination. There's a federally designated organization called the Organ Procurement Transplant Network that they maintain the wait list, and we go off of that wait list. Everybody that is listed in the United States is put on that list, and they rank the people based upon what that person goes to see their physician and how they are then ranked within the organ transplant wait list. But we do not make that determination.
Black hijab. No questions. Yeah, you have the question. Okay.
Thanks for sharing this information with us. I have a little question. Is there a choice when you participate in the donation to exclude some organs from the donation? As Imam mentioned, Islamically, we cannot donate like reproductive organs. So is there a choice when you can like scratch out some organs? Thank you.
So yes, you do have a choice, and you can't designate your choice at the Driver's License Bureau, but you can do that online. So if you go online at registerme.org, you are able to make the designation of, let's say if you want to be a tissue donor but not an organ donor, you can do that. Or if you want to donate your heart but not your lungs, you can make that designation online as well. And we don't recover reproductive organs, so you won't have to worry about that with us.
Or your family can make that decision.
Yes. Or your family can make that decision too. So.
So I think the other aspect of the reproductive is that's nothing, that is not a gift that we would recover in transplant. And that's why I was just asking the Imam to clarify. I just was trying to understand if he was specifically talking about the reproductive organs or whether sperm or ovaries, but that, as far as our responsibilities as an organ procurement organization, we don't, that would not be a gift that we would recover in transplant. That helps.
But if the laws change in a particular country or they do something like that, then in Islam that is prohibited, and we would obviously, mark that to be something that we're not donating. But otherwise, anything other than the reproductive organs would be donated, and sperm in Islam is not permissible to be donated.
And I think the other aspect is with each of our families, we go over a very informed of what exactly we're going to recover. So it wouldn't be that we would just check, any or all that are applicable. We go over each individual gift, heart, lung, liver, kidney, the specific gifts of tissue and cornea. So we specifically go over that in a documented form and explain that to each family that we have the privilege of speaking to.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this was covered or not, but even if you designate particular organs to be gifted or donated, you can go back and onto the computer and log on and change that. So if you designate it once, it doesn't mean it's permanent. If you change your mind or want to add or subtract, you can always go back and do that from the comfort of your computer. Just by show of hands, because it is time for adhan, how many people have questions still? Still have questions? We have one person. Anybody else? All right, so I will have your question answered individually, but I'd like to take a moment to thank our esteemed panelists. And thank you, Audrey, thank you, Barry, thank you, Robert, and thank you, Andy, for taking from your precious time and driving all the way here on a Friday evening after a very long day of work to spend it with us here at the Muslim community at Islamic Center of Greater Cincinnati. On behalf of the entire community and organization, I extend my most sincere gratitude to all of you for spending from your family and precious time to be with us, to educate us on the process of organ gifting and tissue donation, and how important that is to many that will receive, many recipients that will benefit from. And I hope we raised some awareness as well as shared some beneficial knowledge from both the process of gifting and so forth, as well as the Islamic perspective on what is and isn't permissible and the different opinions on this matter. And if you've missed it and want to watch this program, you can find it on our ICGC YouTube channel as it is being live streamed, and you can always watch it at your convenience in the future, inshallah ta'ala. And yes, absolutely.
On behalf of Network for Hope, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to be here once again. This is something that we're privileged to do, and as we said before, this is one of our favorite events to do. So thank you very much for having us and your support of the mission of donation.
Thank you, and you always are welcome, and we look forward to our next program, inshallah, sometime in the near future. And Sister Nisreen, inshallah, I ask our esteemed panelists after prayer if they can spend a few minutes with Sister Nisreen to answer a question. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much, and inshallah now we will have the call to prayer. Brother Ali, if you are here, inshallah ta'ala, then iqama and prayer. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Anything correct that I said is from Allah Almighty and His guidance, and anything incorrect is from my own shortcomings and mistakes. May Allah always guide us. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Take care of yourself, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Thank you so much for being here. You're fine. No, we understand completely. No, thank you. We really appreciate your presence and support.
I love coming here. It's like a great way to end the week.
Thank you.